I don't know how you expect me to go after a pastor. Okay, we've got 10 minutes on the jump right in. What is gentrification? That's what I'm talking about. Gentrification is a general term for the arrival of wealthier people in an existing urban area, which results in an increase in rent and property values. This also changes the area's character and culture. The term is often used negatively, suggesting the displacement of poor communities by rich outsiders. Those who claim gentrification is positive speak of a cleaner neighborhood, or they refer to it as urban renewal. This is the price for sanitized space, the relocation of the poor and the marginalized. So we've seen that happen in Salt River, just down the road here. And over a number of years, we've seen families who are part of the church that I work at being moved out of that neighborhood because they can no longer afford to live there. They're forced to move, and they're often forced to move to the urban edge, away from schools, places of worship, and other social services. The simplest explanation for that in my mind is that in this city we've left it up to the market to decide who lives where in the city. But we mustn't forget the original intent and object of city design in South Africa. Lutando alluded to some of that, and I believe that was to keep people apart and to keep black people at the periphery of the city. Cecil John Rhodes once wrote, "What I would like in regard to a native area is that there should be no white men in its midst. I hold that the natives should be apart from white men and not mixed up with them." That was later codified in apartheid spatial planning, which again Lutando spoke about, but it comes through in when Kailicha was founded as Dr. Piet Korenhoff in 1963 spoke about a policy of building a new township location to the east of Mitchell's Plain. And they put up shacks and shared toilets and ablution facilities. And that worked. This is a race dot map, which is similar to what Lutando did, but this is just racially. So all the pink dots are white people appropriately. And then the blue dots are black people. So it's very clear. White people at the center, close to the city center and the beaches, colored people in the middle, and then black people on the periphery. So the rhetoric of that is something like the darker the color of your skin, the further away you are from essential services and opportunities. That periphery, by the way, there's just going to be memes every now and then. The periphery of the city of Cape Town was effectively extended when City Council approved the extension of the boundaries to approve a development called the Westcape development. The Westcape development is, in summary, the idea is to build a new city on the N7, 25 kilometers away from Cape Town. And they're proposing to build 200,000 homes for 800,000 people. And that is to deal with some of the things that we're facing with housing and also location. But in 40 to 60 years ago, some of the neighborhoods that we have now in Cape Town were built, and we still aren't able to deliver basic services to them. So I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do that from scratch. Besides, that's exactly what Atlantis was. That was an apartheid government idea, and that hasn't worked. So why are we not looking at changing exactly what Lutando said? Why are we not looking at changing the spatial design of the city? We seem to be developing further out, extending the periphery of where the city is. Anyways, if you read between the lines of some of the new developments going up in Salt River, then you hear something about cleansing and renewal. And something interesting about that is the use of graffiti. So if you walk through Salt River, they have the most beautiful murals on people's walls. And it's usually done under the guise of neatening up a neighborhood or cleaning up, people taking pride in where they live. But a little bit of paint can't gloss over past and current injustices. So some of this is beautifully illustrated by this piece of street art. So the top, that's our two pictures. So the top is a picture of a woman and an octopus, and then an artist wrote over it, "For just a moment, this pretty face and octopus has made me forget that my rent has doubled and that my neighborhood is being destroyed." This art is like putting makeup on a festering wound. You see, gentrification is not just about geography or physically moving people. It's also about identity. So in a research paper written by someone focusing on Woodstock, they said, gentrification-linked evictions lead to an exclusion of low-income individuals and families from participation within their communities, but also perpetuates the painful history and legacy of imperial control and identity visualization. That's a live issue. Here's an advert that Pam Golding did last year, and it's of Luke and Dex, and I've covered their faces. And it says, "We are Saturdays at the Old Biscuit Mill. We are the pulse of Lower Main Road. We are the street art of Gympie Street. We are craft beers at Woodstock breweries. We are a place of the city's history." That's gross. That's a gross form of appropriation. What this advert says to me is that these people are saying that this neighborhood is ours. We made the vibe, we made the culture, and we're entitled to it. That doesn't sound very different to what colonialism was. So let's be careful about the next inference that I'm going to make. I know people who know Luke and Dex, and they say they're okay people. But the system they've come to represent is gross. They are the poster boys for a more sinister goal of a market-driven neoliberal global city. So it doesn't matter if it's Luke or Dex or Pam Golding or another representative. They're all representatives of the same cause. And alarmingly, the rhetoric of that cause is not very different to the colonial enterprise of Cecil John Rhodes. Yeah. Sorry that he features so much in this, but he once said, Africa is still lying ready for us. It is our duty to take it. It is our duty to seize every opportunity of acquiring more territory, and we should keep this one idea steadily before our eyes, that more territory simply means more of the Anglo-Saxon race, more of the best, the most human, most honorable race the world possesses. Isn't that what's happening in Cape Town? All of Cape Town lies before us. It's a bit of a free-for-all for developers in Cape Town at the moment. And in particular for those parts close to the city centre. There's something called the Urban Development Zone, which gives tax incentives to developers to build new developments in the city centre. But there's no mechanism to control the type of development that's being built. And so you have these marbled halls of opulence for only the super rich. And it's only ever accessed by the very wealthy. So once Jared Rousseau from Lufuna Kwazi speak about that, and he mentioned this new development in town. So this is a website for a development called the Onyx. And if you buy two of the apartments in that development, you get a free Jaguar. A Jaguar. Who is that place aimed at? Perhaps the most contentious of these types of enablers is the creation of spaces like the Old Biscuit Mill. It's a designated non-poor space. Artivist group Tokolos has a stencil that assigned that label. So the Biscuit Mill is a closed economy. Every Saturday, business pours in, and every Saturday afternoon, business owners pour out. But just one street behind the Biscuit Mill is a neighborhood in total disrepair. That side of the neighborhood is for poor people. Inside of the Biscuit Mill is for non-poor people. So this is what happens when you let the market dictate who lives where. The market is not a moral compass. It doesn't have the ability to answer the question of what's right and wrong. It can simply respond to the question, what is profitable? And profit can never be a proxy for morality. And that's where legislators have failed us. And the humanity in other people like developers and the city council. So let's get back to that Pam Golding advert. Gentrification in Cape Town and the neighborhoods of Woodstock and Salt River has a specific context. So I asked two of my friends who were born and raised in Salt River what their thoughts on gentrification were. And they said, Kiana said, gentrification is totally wrong because it is breaking up families. Basically, it's the same as the Group Areas Act. Yeah. We've lived here our whole lives. We are basically forcibly removed. Yeah. Zaylan said, I think that government, landlords, and developers doesn't care about the people and are just increasing pricing to ridiculous amounts. And people can't afford. So yeah, they are forced out and moved to areas that are foreign to some of them. But it's like apartheid all over again, which is one of the reasons Cape Town is filled with gangsterism. This issue matters because it affects real people. Some of the earliest plans of the VOC to segregate Cape Town involved building, not quite a wall like Donald Trump, but building a trench, and later on Jan van Riebeeck settled on building a hedge to keep people apart. And so from those early days, our ancestors were told that they don't belong in the city. See, as a colored person, my identity is complex. To say that I fully understand it would be a lie. And to say that it's confusing is an understatement. But what I've come to understand is that I'm of mixed descent. And so I have colonialist heritage, slave heritage, and indigenous people heritage within me. When I hear Luke and Dex making an inference about this neighborhood, I think they're also making an inference about the people in that neighborhood, because neighborhoods are made up of people.
Yeah.
So that gives me a bit of an identity complex. My slave ancestry says to me that I'm not someone whose land was taken away from him, but I'm someone who's taken away from his land. And my indigenous ancestry says to me that I don't belong in the city. And my colonialist ancestry says is a whitewashing of all of that. Because to be colored, and to be honest, is to want to be white. We fight for our heritage to be German and English and Dutch, but we let go of our heritage of color. This is a dislocated, dismembered identity. Salt River historically is a predominantly colored neighborhood. The majority of the historic families being evicted are colored. Some have lived there for 50 years, some were first evicted from District 6. And now through the market are forced into what they're calling temporary relocation areas as sanctioned by the courts and local government. These are not relocations, they're dislocations of dislocated people. These are people who are long ago written out of the history of South Africa. We are the court jesters of this country, good enough only to be in Trevor Noah jokes. Khadija Egan says in a poem, somewhere between here and there, between 1994 and the present, I was lost on the periphery of a South African story. We can't even assert our identity when Wade wins a race. And I'm not even denying colored privilege, I think that exists. So here we are, suspended in perpetuity between neither here nor there, forcefully removed again. History repeating itself like an old person retelling stories of their past. Gentrification is not about geography only, or that land question only. It is about people, it's about dignity. And that's why we must do something about it. So my last slide.